some people just have a hard time letting go and letting Google, the AI, or whatever it is, just do all this work that they used to do on a regular basis.
Yeah, but every time they do, it works out really well.
Welcome back to NEMT Experts. I've got Tony Aycock with me, who's a senior manager at Call the Car. Tony, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How about yourself?
Doing wonderful. Tony, let's dive into Call the Car. So Call the Car is a massive broker based in Southern California. You not only broker out rides to tons of transportation providers, but you also manage your own in-house fleet. Can you just give us a sense of Call the Car's operations, where you have operations, and the scale of it?
Yeah, sure. So right now, we do primarily operate in California. Now, we do occasional rides outside of California, but primarily it's in California, although we are kind of expanding out, and we're hoping to get more contracts outside of California. But we have the biggest health plans. We have like Care, Blue Shield, Inland Empire Health Plan, Social California Alliance for Health, and a couple other small contracts as well. But overall, I would say throughout the year, well, let's actually bring it back down, just on a monthly basis, we provide or create reservations about 900,000 to 1 million per month. So it's a lot of different rides. So some of those may be canceled or in advance, but we're doing somewhere between like 850,000 at least completed or no-showed rides per month. So it's a pretty large scale, and that's tens of thousands of individual patients per month.
That is massive. So Tony, talk to me about the technology that has enabled Call the Car to grow and manage such a massive operation.
Yeah, I mean, technology is a big part of it. I mean, that's a big part of any industry these days, and anyone who is willing to embrace technology are basically the companies that are going to springboard into the future. Basically, when Call the Car started, we had basically our proprietary system called CERTS, which is a long acronym, and it stands for a lot of different things. And I think if you ask several different people, none of them will get it right. But it's like credentialing, contracting, reservations, a whole bunch of other stuff. Anyhow, and that's how we make our reservations. And it was pretty forward thinking when we did it. But really, what really drives transportation and being able to do it in the moment is being able to track rides in real time. Be able to route the trips that are actually in progress or route trips for the next day. So where we're seeing the most benefit is through the API connections and the dispatch software themselves. And that's where we've actually, for Call the Car with our fleet, we've had a lot of success so far since we've actually switched over to Bambi, actually. And that's made a lot of difference. It's made a lot of difference in our on-time performance. It's made a lot of difference in terms of our workload as well, because, like I said, we're a hybrid model. So we have we would use our own fleet, but we also have a subcontractor network, and our dispatchers they're better spent time trying to dispatch those other trips out to the providers, calling those providers, seeing who can take what trips, working behind the scenes to get that done. It's better that they don't spend all their day trying to, logistically find what trips we can put with the fleet here and how to route those. At one point, we had maybe 7 or 8 fleet routers and fleet dispatchers working on a particular day to keep that going, as opposed to now I can allocate that workforce elsewhere, where it only takes maybe 1 to 2 dispatchers throughout the entire day. And it's 1 dispatcher routing, but maybe 2 dispatchers monitoring the different regions that we have. So it's really forward thinking in terms of workforce management, but also it's more intuitive than an individual can do as well, because people tend to be, they zero in on those small details, or they get really myopic, but you can't really see everything all at once, and you can't get those ETAs. You can't see everything three-dimensionally. Whereas the AI built into Bambi really helps us with the time between trips. Like when I'm out running reports, even, I'm not just looking at the time that each trip takes based on the mileage, but when you run like after action reports for like a month or a week, you can see the time that it takes to get between each trip, which is really interesting for us, because it really helps us really delve into how much time we're wasting if they're not actually going using the recommendations that Bambi is giving us.
Yeah, I mean, Tony, just going to your numbers, you moved from having 8 dispatchers down to 2.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Now we haven't had to get rid of any of that staff. We've used that. We've reallocated that staff to working with our subcontractor network to help them, optimize their routes. And we have, and that's another thing. We have several providers who are now using Bambi. Part of that is because of the growing presence that Bambi has within the industry. And some of it, some of that probably has to do with the fact that we've moved to Bambi. I think a lot of providers, they see that we're using it, so they may just want to move into the same direction that larger companies are using, and I think that helps a lot. But as soon as they try it, I think that they obviously see the benefit, but it allows us to help them build their routes better, because if they're using any kind of the optimization that Bambi provides, then we can also work in little zones and say, hey, I have these 10 trips. Here you go. Work your magic, run Bambi Run. And then they say, okay, I can put these all in one vehicle. Give me some more. So it helps them with their volume, which helps them with their overall, cost benefit. And then it also helps just in general with their operations, because it helps them become more efficient, which is the same thing it does with us. It helps them become more efficient, become more profitable. And I think the biggest takeaway there is that for a long time, the whole industry has been working in a very archaic method for a long time, because some of the other platforms of dispatch softwares, they didn't have a lot of real-time traffic update, did not have efficient routing things. Some other ones had things where you could shop tools and things like that, where they can give the estimates, ETAs, or suggestions, but it wasn't necessarily that intuitive, and oftentimes they were just wrong. So we found it's a lot more accurate with the new algorithms that Bambi uses.
Just the internal fleet of Call the Car and what kind of volumes you guys do on a regular basis.
So Call the Car we have a larger fleet. We don't utilize it all at the same time. In certain regions, they're doing longer distance trips because the Inland Empire is so expansive, and some of the people we're picking up where they're maybe in like Desert Hot Springs, and then maybe going to Redlands for a doctor's visit. So it's it's going to be a longer distance trip. So you may not be able to fit as many trips in that driver's schedule, but that's also where Bambi does come in, because where we may have only put one or two trips in that driver's schedule previously, Bambi's like, you can get more, you can fit more. So that's one of the things we're trying to force ourselves to do, and think outside the box and kind of push trips to Bambi, to our fleet through Bambi, and then say, hey, what can you do for us here? And I think that's one thing we're still kind of training ourselves to do, because I think previously we were always very cautious about it, because it was always a manual process. And now that we let Bambi do the work for us, it's still sometimes it's a struggle, but it's on our end, because we're like, some people don't want to take their hands totally off the wheel. So we're still struggling with that, but every time we do, it always works out. So it's just kind of a training situation in that regard.
Yeah, I come across that a lot, actually, Tony. It's like, hey, you have this new tool that's going to do all the work for you, but some people just have a hard time letting go and letting the tool or the AI or whatever it is just do all this work that they used to do on a regular basis and just trust it.
Yeah, but every time they do, it works out really well, and that's when I see it. But it's still every time it's like, well, what about this problem? And it's like, look, you guys just watched that pilot or the beta with the multi-loading, and that's something they're really excited about, really trying to really dig into. Again, that's another thing we have to push more volume because we hadn't been doing with our fleet. We really didn't multi-load a lot. Partially because they had to do it manually, and it didn't make a lot of sense for us at the time. So we were kind of changing the settings in our fleet within Bambi that we can start multi-loading a bit more, which also helped make our fleet more profitable because that was one issue is our fleet is more of our branding and our marketing as we're their only broker really with our own fleet. It's not really a money maker for us. It's those high touch white glove service trips that we do for our clients, but we can make it more profitable by multi-loading, by having those more efficient trips, more efficient routes that Bambi can help provide.
Yeah, the multi-loading in Bambi's schedule optimizer, that's a huge new release for us. We've been working on it for a long time to make sure to get it right. So I'm glad you guys are making use of that. Tony, you at Call the Car, I mean, the whole team, you have this unique perspective from not only being a very large transportation provider yourselves with your own vehicles, but also brokering out to a massive number of transportation providers. Is there any just general advice that you can give? A lot of these transportation providers who either want to get in with a broker like Call the Car or grow their business, what are some of the low-hanging fruit that they can pick to level up their game?
Well, making sure that all the credentialing is done, making sure that the drivers are trained adequately, things like that, because you'd be surprised of how often we come up with deficits. So we'll have vendors who will they'll contract with us. It'll take weeks or even sometimes months where we can actually start giving them trips because they don't have all their vehicles. They don't have all the information that they need. They don't have the inspections done. They don't have their permits for in LA. LA you require like LA DOT permits for certain area, like large portions of LA. That's one. So that's one that's totally avoidable. As long as you have that, you prepare yourself for that requirement. The other one is set your sights on. Everyone wants to do everything with transportation, and they contract for every level of service. But I think setting your sights for what I think it's an old saying. Find a job no one wants to do and do it really well, right? And I think that works the same way in transportation because, for instance, in LA, in Los Angeles, we're doing hundreds of thousands of trips every day. Most of them are what we consider ambulatory curb to curb, which are, members do not need any kind of assistance at all. A lot of those go to rideshare, but then the next level up, you have like door to door, which you're kind of going away soon, but that really need a little assistance. But they have wheelchair. Wheelchair is really common at this point. People don't want to do wheelchair quite as much as they want to do gurney transportation because gurney transportation in every market pays more. But there's a limited number, right? And I think that's why you have to leverage the technology to make the wheelchair and the ambulatory trips work for you, because that's where you're going to make that money by using the technology to optimize your operation to where even if you're taking the lower levels of service, you can still turn a profit that way. Because if you're looking at a larger area and you're looking at only 5% of the volume is a higher level of service, like gurney or ambulance trips, then you're amongst 200 other providers that are fighting for that 5%. Whereas we have the other, we have a 15% being wheelchair, and no one's fighting for those. So if you take those jobs that other people don't want to do and you really do them well, you're going to be the go-to. for any broker to send those trips to. And I think that's one of the biggest ones is, make sure that you're marketing yourself to the right in the right area, and don't go for the large paycheck immediately, because that's you're building your brand and you're building your service levels, you're building your reputation in the industry. And I think that's where it really comes from.
That is such a gem of wisdom. And I've heard this from other transportation providers who have become successful. You got to do the jobs that no one else wants to do and is willing to do, and do those well. Like, that's how you get your foot in the door with whoever you're trying to get contracts with or increase your contracts with. That is the way to go. Tony, thank you so much for sharing. Are there any other pearls of wisdom you want to drop on the audience of transportation providers out here?
I mean, I think other than I said, like I said, do the things no one wants to do, and if you can, obviously sign up with Bambi. That's the biggest pearl of wisdom that I can think of.
Run, Bambi, run.
Exactly, run, Bambi, run.